Hello! It's wickedly hot here. The time is about 11 in the evening and it's about 28 degrees Celsius, and that's not very usual. We're not used to that where I live, as I today have been working in the 1780s as a farmer's wife. I've been dressed in more wool than I needed today. I thought that we should talk a bit about the concept of gender. It's quite a new concept, actually. Of course, we have the difference between sex, that is the biological things that are going on in us, but the gender doesn't have that much to do with the biological parts. It's more the socially constructed differences. How we really, without knowing it, teach our children what is a boy and what is a girl. That's not really that easy, because it's quite difficult to separate these two things, the biological sex and the socially constructed gender. There's no one to study who hasn't been brought up in a social environment, you know. So it's very difficult to say what is biologically female and what is biologically male in terms of thinking and acting and what we do. One of my cats just came and visited. So, what is typically female and what is typically male? We tend to see strength and wealth and action and building things and that kind of things as typically male, while nursing, caring, talking to each other, we see those things as typically female. We don't know much about the history before the agricultural revolution, because, as I said earlier, I think I've said it earlier, I'm not sure. At least I thought it, and I thought maybe you could hear what I think. That's also typically female, some people say. They didn't write anything down. The hunter-gatherers in the Stone Age, we actually started farming and working the land in the Stone Age. We don't know much about their gender roles because they didn't write anything down. We don't know anything. We don't have any laws. We don't have anything. We can see at burials how have people been buried and see that probably they were a bit more equal than we are today. Or I don't know if we can compare it with today, but we can compare it with the 1800s or the 1700s and say that they probably were more equal. We don't know when the society became more patriarchal, you know. Probably around the agricultural revolution, but we don't really know. But what we do know is pre-industrialized society was very gender segregated. But they didn't think of it like that. Not really. Because the concept of gender wasn't even invented yet. So this gender thing, it's a very new thought. Not until about 50 years ago, in the 60s, we first called it women's studies, because they realized that always when they talked about studies done on humans, then it was always studies done on man, and they wanted to do something about that. So it started as women's studies, as long as into the 1980s perhaps. Then they started to use the word gender. I'm not sure if it's the same in English. In Swedish that's it. We didn't use the equivalent to the word gender until the 1980s. It might be a bit earlier in the English language. I will skip the 1800s for now, at least the late 1800s, and go to the pre-industrialized world. This is a word where most people are farmers, because it's a huge apparatus just to feed everyone. And the life of the farmer haven't been that different if you look at different parts of the world. The women have mostly worked indoors, at home, and they are doing many things at the same time. The men have been working outdoors, they have often been away for long periods of times, and they have mostly done one thing at a time. Is it true then that women are better at multitasking? Because this suggests that, doesn't it? I would say, probably not. In that case, I am quite male, because I'm not very good at multitasking. If you look at the kinds of things that men and women have done, men have often done things that need their full attention. They have been hunting, for instance. We don't know how much women hunters there have been in history, and in hunter-gatherer societies there are things that indicates that there might have been just as many female hunters as male hunters, but we don't really know. But hunting, foresting, making coal, building houses, they are big projects, you know, and the women's chores have been more chores. There are a lot of things that have to be done all the time. So, are men more adapted for foresting and harrowing and cutting wood and hunting, for that matter, and women better at cooking and doing laundry? I would say again, don't think so. I think, though, that sometime in our early history, people thought that it's more practical if the women take care of the children. And while taking care of the children, you have to keep them clean, you have to feed them, you can't go very far, at least not when the children are very small. And since we didn't have an option for women feeding the really newborn, it kind of made itself that men needed to do the other stuff, because those things also needed to be done. And these are my thoughts on it. I'm sure there are a lot of other thoughts, and I am not so recently studied on this. So, why didn't women protest about this? Why didn't they do anything about being bound to the home while the men were out on merchant trips, or to go to markets everywhere, or hay harvest, and why didn't they protest? Everyone have been indoctrinated. It's just us now that think about this as something strange. Because for a woman in the 1700s, the woman that I've been playing today, dying in my woolen clothes in this terrible heat, she wouldn't even understand the question. For her, the natural order of things is that the woman works at home, many things at the same time, and they are mostly indoors. That's the way she has been brought up. Does she want her husband to come in and take over and do the cooking and the washing up after the dinner, and doing the laundry and cleaning the house and taking care of the children? No, probably not. Because if he can do that, he wouldn't need her. That's a security for everyone. I do not say that this is right, and I do not want to go back to that. Not at all. I'm just putting it out there that I do not think that the women thought that this was wrong. And those ideas of how things should work and do work have been living on for very long. We brought them with us from the pre-industrialized world into a society where the woman very well could manage on her own, and the man also very well could manage on their own. But the gender roles was so strongly imprinted in our culture, so we couldn't even imagine changing that. Of course, there were people that, at least in the 1800s, that started to question a few of these things. We will come back to that. So, I hope that I've made some sense today. If I haven't, please tell me so. That's about it for today. See you soon, I hope. Bye!